Hello and welcome to a very long delayed commentary of Hyrule Total War. And my excuse for this is because the faction that I am showing today that I've been working on caused a lot of technical problems when I was making them, and this is mostly because they introduced a few new things such as animal handler units and flying units. And those that know Medieval 2 know that the engine was not intended for flying units, so it was a challenge getting him to work. But anyway, I suppose we will just set the battle up and I can show you guys all this stuff. So the faction that I have been working on is Ordona Province, and for those that do not know, Ordona Province was introduced in Twilight Princess as a farming nation to the south of Hyrule, and basically they grew the crops and the livestock and sold it off to the Hylians, so they are basically the breadbasket of Hyrule, if you will. And I really liked how they were introduced in Twilight Princess, because one thing that always bugged me about the Zelda series was how I never really explained where everyone got their food, and I like ecology in video games and stuff, so I like it when the land actually makes sense. And despite people complaining about the overworld in Twilight Princess, it actually made ecological sense compared to a lot of other things. But anyway, Ordona Province, they're an army of farmers, basically, and they use their livestock in battle, and they use a lot of different animals in battle. And as you might suspect, they're not a professional military organization, so yeah, I'll just wait for this to load and I'll explain a little more. A little glitch. Anyway, so yeah, they're a cavalry heavy faction, so they have the best cavalry in the game, which is a good thing, really. And yeah, as you can see, they're basically just an army of farmers armed with basic weapons and things like pitchforks and stuff and farmer tools. That we'll skip the general speech and I'll just start introducing all the units. So first up we have the basic Ordana unit, which is farmers. They're really cheap and they come free with every base or city. And since they're really weak, they're not useful in combat. They're basically cannon fodder, and they're armed with pitchforks or whatever weapon they can find. So they're not even really considered their basic infantry unit, because they're not even, they're just really weak. But they're handy in a quick defensive. And then the second Ordana unit we have are basically the same thing, but they're armed with bows, so they're farmer archers. They're not spectacular, but for an early game unit, it's always handy to have archers, so those are the farmer archers. Third up, we have the mounted farmers. Basically, they're farmers that ride on horses, and these ones have bows and arrows, so they are a ranged cavalry unit, which is always a handy thing to have in any army. And next up, we have finally the basic infantry unit for Ordana, the militiamen. These are basically soldiers in training. They're armed with Ordon swords and Ordon shields, which were also introduced in Twilight Princess. And they have light armor on, so they're a very good light infantry unit. Not too spectacular compared to the Hylian soldiers, but... And here we have the Ordana Horsemen, which is probably one of the best cavalry units in the game. Definitely the best light cavalry unit. And they're basically the militiamen on horses. So they're really good at charging. They can hold up in a fight. They're not good against arrows, though, but most cavalry is weak against arrows and things of that nature. And here we have the shepherd's flock. Can't really see them well on the hill, so I'll put them on the top here. The shepherd's flock, there's the shepherd in the back here that basically bosses the goats around, and these are the Ordana goats that were also introduced in Twilight Princess. So they are one of the first animal units I have. And then here we have the lumberjacks, which basically are Ordona Province's heavy infantry. They're armed with hatchets and a pretty thick suit of leather armor, so they're good heavy infantry. Again, nothing compared to the armored units of some of the other factions, but pretty good for farmers. And here we have the Ordona Rangers. These are soldiers armed with longbows, and besides the Gerudo Dune archers, they're the best ranged unit in the game, pretty much. They have the longest range, basically, and they're also really good in melee too, so that kind of gives them a little edge over the Dune archers that the Gerudo have. So they're basically an all-purpose ranged and melee unit. And here we have the Goat Lords, which is the undisputed best cavalry unit in the game. Instead of riding on horses, these guys ride on armored goats, so they're really tough and they're pretty fast. They're faster than the Dodongo riders of the Gorons, so that's why these guys are better, even if the Dodongo riders have a little bit of a stronger attack. So yeah, the Goat Lords, definitely one of my favorite units in this game. Plus, it's just awesome seeing people ride on armored goats, and to be truthful. And here is, this has been a highly anticipated unit, the Hawkmen, and basically, these are the first flying units I've made, and they were a huge pain to get to work, but using a few tricks with animation, I was able to get the flying units to work, and they actually work pretty good. There's a few little bugs that I'm trying to work out, which I will eventually stamp out, although there's one bug in particular. They don't fly over walls or buildings inside the bases or cities of enemies, so I don't know why they won't go over the walls. It's a bug that I have no clue how to fix yet, but hopefully I'll fix it in the future. And right here we have the first Ordona hero, which is Russell from Twilight Princess. Kind of hard to see him in the front there. He's the one without the helmet. And truthfully, he is a pretty boring character in Twilight Princess. I kind of like him, though. He's an interesting guy. Kind of creepy. But his lack of character development in the game kind of gave me a lot of freedom here with him, so he's kind of grown on me. And then next up we have a very notable hero character from Ordona, and this would be Ilia from Twilight Princess, the daughter of Marabou. And much like Princess Ruda, when I was first introduced to her, she was a character I didn't like at all. I kind of thought she was a throw-in to replace Saria, and that really pissed me off, but she's okay. In this game, she's armed with a sickle, which is pretty awesome. And naturally, she's on a horse, so she's a pretty good cavalry unit. And the last Ordona hero we have is, those that have played my other Zelda games will recognize her. She's an original character of mine, and her name is Anara, and she is an Ordonian ranger, and she has a bow. She's one of the better archer heroes in the game, probably only topped by Malon, and she's very useful to have in an army. Not really much to say about her, because I don't really have much to say about any of my original characters. So I will get my units in a group, or groups, plural. All my melee units in a group, my archers in a group, and cavalry in a group. And since I'm a cavalry heavy faction, I think charging the enemy might be a little valid in this case, so I'm going to have my cavalry just do a direct charge right at the start. And then I'll have my archers and infantry come up behind just in case things get dicey and the charge backfires on me. Which, knowing my luck, it probably will, because I've never successfully pulled off a frontal charge. So I'm fighting the Gorons. brave me. They're one of the tougher opponents to beat. So it looks like they're doing a steady march with their bombers in the front. So I'm just going to have my cavalry come up and charge, with my archers providing cover. Ooh, King Dodongo. This is going to be fun.